but doctors are losing a lot of money, and there's a lot of inefficiency in the practices now. And what problems do you solve? Do you see are the key problems?
You know, the key problem, and I keep going back to the premise of Dentipay, how it evolved, what it became, why it became. And it wasn't difficult to figure this out. Being in the finance business, being in public and private equities for my entire life, I understood that the banking algorithms were the key to everything, or the lack of understanding of the banking algorithms. Mostly, I looked at this industry, and as I got to know Charles, Dr. Zahedi, we've become close friends now. Originally, I went into this, as indicated, because I was experiencing the whole process of learning about my mouth and the costs and the profit margin. And I was very interested from a business standpoint. We became friends. We became talking at the side of the chair every time. And we determined that Charles was very excited and wanted to expand these what we eventually called satellite nodes. And the idea was they would be the mothership, right, like his large facility in Santa Ana, and then we would expand these nodes, and we would take in these partner practitioners, right, and make them equity partners, right, so they stayed around, and we invested in them, and we were going to use the technology and the best of breed, Slack and AI and lots of different technologies that dentistry wasn't using. They were using dot matrix printers and who knows, but nothing was standardized here, and everybody was trying to figure out the direction. But what I noticed the most is that there were empty chairs, all these places, empty chairs. And I also was interested because I started to notice as I walked around the neighborhood, I noticed more than ever in the last 30 years of my life, Irvine dentist, Newport dentist, all these dentists, like pizza places. And I started to think to myself, these are like thousands of retail establishments with no brand equity. It wasn't like I was walking into Prada or Gucci or Porsche dealership. It just a dentist. You didn't know anything about them. Their brand didn't mean anything effectively. So I thought, how does that brand equity translate to the patient's interest? And if the patient does have interest, how do they walk through the door and decide, like I did, that they can afford 20, 30, $40,000 worth of a reconstructive mouth, even if it's not reconstructive,
Yes.
uh, a face full of veneers and I don't care what you do. If you want a Hollywood mouth, that's a 40, 50, $60,000 job. If you have problems, it's a 40, 50, $60,000 job. And your Hollywood mouth is probably going to be a byproduct of because they got to take your whole mouth apart. They're going to make it look nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I learned that there were two components driving the marketplace: pleasure and pain. You're walking through the door for one of those reasons. So I ultimately thought that, well, why don't we take the best of breed, best of technology, better underwriting procedures, and not kind of jam them into these terrible BNPLs, these disguised cherry care credits that were effectively just Synchrony Bank in disguise, acting as if they were a special care unit. They're not. It was a camouflage. And I started to look at their underwriting. I started to look at their approval ratios. And that's when I thought, wow, if we just took Charles's concept and expanded what we called American medical innovations and put all this together and got 10 facilities doing $1 million net, 10x earnings P ratio in the dental industry. That's with the DSO, that's a $100 million exit. And I thought, hey, 3 years, 5 years, 100 million bucks, why not? So as we started getting deeper into this, something changed. And what changed was I realized that I did not want to be tied to wet chair dentistry. I didn't want to be tied to payroll. You've been with me. How many years have you been with me? I didn't want to be tied to buildings and hundreds of staff and salespeople and bloat and controlling all of the decision makings of so many people. And with AI and technologies and efficiencies, 40 years ago, I was using Goldmine and database technology. And I started to migrate towards one particular component, and that was, why should we expand our own 10 facilities? Why should we make 10 of our own facilities that are capital intensive efficient. Why should we go for 100 million? Why not go for $1 billion?
Yeah. I know how you do business. A lot of people don't, but I've validated that in a previous conversation. What you're doing is creating a lattice, a framework for dentistry, and letting AI grow on there. And we're solving some problems right now, but there's going to be more problems in the future. And with Dr. Zahedi being able to bring his clinical practice problems and issues, that AI will solve it. So right now it's one thing, but this can evolve into something else. We can be nimble. Or how do you see it?
Well, I think the important thing is that you have to understand that Dentipay is just the brand layer, okay? Dentipay is not the engine. The intelligence engine is Scope. And Scope rests within Dentipay, but we also have, which we haven't announced, Cosmetipay, okay? Now, everybody says, well, let's move. No, we're not moving in that direction right now. Because before anybody determines they need other cosmetic work, the first thing they need is teeth, okay? And a cosmetic procedure could be $10,000 or $12,000. The average mouth could be 20, 30, 40, or 50. Dentistry is where we want to be right now. That's our target.
I agree.
And we want to master it in dentistry.
And Dr. Zahedi, out of the pain and pleasure market, are you seeing obviously more pain patients, or are you seeing a growth in the pleasure because of Instagram and everyone wants that Hollywood smile?
Yeah, so Adam and I have a lot of things in common. One of them, we are data driven. We are factual. We don't dream. We dream, but based on real numbers. We are really realistic, right? Brutally, honestly, realistic. And we look at the details of the $478 billion market to see how much of that market is dental practices, how much money they're taking out of that $478 billion, how much is it patient financing, how much is it dental labs, and so on. And that was actually eye-opening for both of us. Mm-hmm. We saw that we initially, when we became co-founders of Advanced Medical Innovation, as Adam just said, Adam has unlimited power for seeing the future. Yeah. He's a visionary, and he never stops. Really? So something has to excite him. One of the things should have excited him is the exit strategy. Okay, is the $100 million or is the $1 billion? Mm-hmm. So in the first 6 months that we're talking, we were doing the multiples of 10, and then the very first time I remember we spoke together, I was on Newport Beach with my dog, walking on the beach actually on the sand, and Adam was walking by himself, and we ended up talking 120 minutes or something together, mm-hmm. and I don't know how many miles, and then he said, "Oh, wait a minute, Charles. Fintech," and of course I'm not Adam, so it takes a couple of seconds for me to wake up, is a multiple of 20. That
2025.
2025.
Blended with dentistry, who knows?
Yeah, and then he said, I said, Adam, that's totally possible. It is possible because my business is based on financing patients. And my business is based on repeat customers. So it's a fintech. Of course, it takes a lot of genius and a lot, amazing group of people. And as I always say, birds of the feather flock together. Adam only surrounds himself with highly motivated, hardcore working, intelligent people. If they're slack, if they're losers, they're not going to survive with him because he does 90 to 150 hours a week. I do the same. So we are kind of motivated. And then Adam said, so we can actually go from owning our nodes, satellite offices, by providing this service, Dentipay and the intelligence and the scope to the rest of the country. Now, some of these doctors might need some training from us in terms of how to close the deal.
Sure.
Scope can do whatever miracles, but at the end, there's a doctor. In every state you go, there's a dental board. Mm-hmm. Dental board says the licensed dentist should do the final evaluation. And we're not going to evaluate the patient for the doctor because we're not licensed dentists. Scope is not, Echo is not.
But I think what you're trying to do, and I know where you're going with this because we've been reading each other's minds for a long time.
You more than me.
But let's get down to the premise. The premise here is, okay, plain and simple, I say this over and over. Providers shouldn't be bankers. Okay? Why are 200,000 providers disenfranchised in this country walking around as bankers? Okay? They are walking into the mouth of the lion. You've got these predatory lenders being Cherry, Care Credit, Alphalon, Sunbit, and they've got their pamphlets sitting in their lobby. They're not even controlled by the provider. And if the person does walk through the door, if the patient does walk through the door, God forbid they pick it up. Because that provider is about to visit that patient, build a relationship with that patient, and present that patient with a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 treatment plan. And that's the price of a car in America, a nice car in America.
Nice car.
Okay? And at that moment, the provider doesn't know, and the patient might not even know, they got declined. And not only that, what's worse is because you allowed them to get declined in that lobby and didn't control that underwriting process, it could have been avoided. Not only could have been avoided, you could have financed everything, and now you can't. Not right now. Because the minute you pull that trigger and you let that soft bureau, even if it's not a hard hit, as soon as that bank pulls that inquiry, the next time the bank looks at it, decline.
Yeah.
So when you're setting up somebody to get financing and you have not pre-underwritten, you haven't used precognitive intelligence, the God's eye, to look, why would you, I use this all the time, I say a Porsche dealership, right? You got a Porsche dealership. If you drove a bus up to Slemons or to Newport Porsche, and everybody wants a Turbo S, everybody, or maybe they want a Cayman, or maybe they want a Mini, whatever it is. But every person walking through that door, they don't know, they're going to have to test drive somebody. They don't know if they can pay or can't pay. You can't judge anybody by the cover these days, that's for sure. You know, a guy walking in looks like he just came off the street, someone can buy the whole place. Okay? So, similar to that, you don't have any insight into their capability. And then what happens when that sticker shock comes? I mean, you really are dealing with cars in the mouth.
You are.
And I likened it back to the the Monty Hall days of Let's Make a Deal.
Yeah.
And the statistic where I studied that, because it was game theory, and I studied Let's Make a Deal. And I learned through the game theory that there were 3 doors. And behind the doors there were 2 goats and 1 car. And everybody wants the car. So when you got on the show, you were allowed to pick door number 1, 2, or 3 and stand behind it. Now whatever door you picked, okay, Monty was the intelligence, meaning he changed it from 50-50 or from a third, because he became the intelligence, meaning he opened one of the doors to reveal a goat. So now you're sitting behind one door, you know a goat's behind another, and you're either behind the car or the car's on the other one.
I want that car.
Now he asks you, do you want to switch? Most people
I fear.
don't switch, okay? But it's been proven mathematically, okay? If you switch, you have a 2/3 chance of winning the car
66%.
because he's the intelligence that defined the other variable. If you don't switch, you have a 1/3 chance, okay? But people don't switch because they're not comfortable. Same goes for traditional financing versus Dentipay. What's the analogy here? Every time switch to Dentipay. Okay, because you're going to get financed, and it's not even 66.6%.
I want to add one more thing.
It's not 66.6%.
It's
It's
more.
100%.
It's 100%.
Okay, because what Dentipay does, you can have not 3 doors, you can have 100 doors, and we have the X-ray vision to let the patient and provider see behind all of those doors, and that's the magic of the scope system, and that's what we can kind of close with. You had something to say?
I just want to say pain, pleasure.
Yes.
I want to add one more thing that we failed to say. For a lot of people, men and women, having ugly teeth is a pain as well.
Yeah.
We always say pain and pleasure. No, if you can't smile, your teeth are healthy, but you're born with teeth that might be yellow or crooked or whatever. That is also a form of pain. It's a psychological pain.
True.
So what we do at Dentipay, we provide dental care that people really need. It might be an extraction, it might be an infection, but also can be something that prevents them to get the job they need. That even is a kind of pain. That's all I have to say.